always find it reassuring at the start of these talks just to remind myself that it's, I'll put that up a little bit, that all I'm doing is passing on something. I don't have to prove anything. These are the teachings, and hopefully there to help you to find that awakened mind inside of you, the enlightened mind, the spontaneous part of your nature, the natural part of your nature. There's a famous painting from a Japanese Zen master that is a great image of this the sense of the clinging mind and the free mind. And in it, in that Japanese calligraphy style from the 18th century, a monkey is squatting in a field, and it's got its head in its hand, ears are covered, sort of like closed off to the world, while a cuckoo with its mouth open is, as it flies over the top, soars in the background, right? So it's by this Zen Master Hakun. I hope I've said that right. I hope there's any Japanese speakers here that would know better. Please correct me. But he also wrote a little poem at the bottom in calligraphy, and it says, "Even when not listening, lift up one hand, the cuckoo." Right? In beautiful haiku form. Even when not listening, lift up one hand, the cuckoo. Yeah. So this Zen master was famous for coming up with the famous Zen phrase, what is the sound of, or what's now known as the sound of one hand clapping, but the original one is, what is the sound of one hand? So these lines are kind of meant to take us out of this rational mind that's trying to work everything out. So in the instructions there's a little part there about starting to notice the thoughts, and that little line there, the past is a memory, the future, it's an idea, it's a fantasy, and who you and I are is a changeable notion. So we'll really sit with this when we start to notice how the mind is creating this sense of ourselves in this moment. We're creating a sense of you. I'm creating a sense of you as well. A thought comes up, I'm contemplating the past, and the idea comes up about the future, about what I want to do, or how I might be able to deal with this situation, and in the future things will be better, whatever it is. But all of it's happening, though, in this present moment. It all happens in this present moment. So the monkey, it's in this image, it's just so resolute in being stuck in its own mental habits, habitual thoughts. And it's kind of like that. When we look inside, it's almost like it's going like this. It's not interested in interacting with the outside world. It's just self-obsessed. It's staying in our own mind. If you just sit down on a bench say up here in Northcote where I live here, just up at the Westgarth shops, if you just sit and watch, you'll just see how often that happens. If you just watch people going past, they are just sitting there in these thoughts. And you might even notice it next time you hop in this thing. It's not the only place it happens, right? But if not in that, then it's like a sense of like head down, striding along. This is the monkey mind stuck in its thoughts. Monkey mind, yeah. So this is, not new. This imagery was 300 years ago. The Buddha asked us to look at it 2,500 years ago. But as the imagery suggests, there's also this other part of our mind. That if we look closely, then there's this other part represented by the cuckoo as well. And in Japanese thinking, it's the bringer of ease, of freshness. It's singing as it flies. Beautiful image, huh? So it's naturalness and this underlying freedom that we have. That is there. Both of those are there. They can be there at the same time. Okay. So what we're called to do is just see as how does the monkey play out in your life? How does it happen? How does the monkey repeat itself? The monkey mind. Again and again. And if we were to really listen closely, what would it be saying? I remember when I first started meditating, there was a lot of people were after the powers that might come with meditating. It doesn't, I don't know, maybe I'm just over it, but they don't seem to talk about as much. But certainly in those days, there was a lot of, well, in India in particular, because we were close to it there, you would hear stories of monks with certain powers or yogis there in India. It was quite a common thing. Reading thoughts, right, is one we all know about. And I remember actually, because I was meditating a fair bit at one point, and at one point there was a glimpse of this came to me, of actually not trying, but just knowing the thoughts, just sort of being tuned in. And I've got to say, it was pretty unwelcome what was there in people's mind. It was pretty unpleasant, mostly. It wasn't pretty. And I really got a sense there in that moment of like, oh yeah, this is not a gift, this one. There's enough suffering in my own mind without trying to know what others are. Well, it went that thing. Not that I pushed it away, it just disappeared. The this aspect of our mind, we get to the lines of what Hakun wrote. Even when not listening, lift up one hand, the cuckoo, right? So what's he saying there? So in the other aspect of this diagram, which is inferred a little bit, is the one of the bodhisattva, the bodhisattva path. They use this imagery of a drowning man or woman putting the arm up to be helped, And it said that in putting your arm up to be helped, the goddess Kuan Yin will reach down with compassion to lift you up out of that drowning mind. drowning aspect of ourselves. Kuan Yin, beautiful Kuan Yin with compassion. So the drowning man is the symbol of that part of us that we all have, where we get drowned in these thoughts. We get drowned in hopelessness at times. We get drowned in helplessness. We get drowned in the busyness of like overwhelm of life. This drowning, a beautiful image, I think, this one. So, and there we get lost in suffering, but there's always this part of us that's yearning to be free. So the Bodhisattva, the goddess Kuan Yin, Avalokiteshvara as well, is this spiritual friend beyond beauty. Kuan Yin is that also another aspect of ourselves that we can start to relate to this monkey mind with this love and compassion, and in that way we're also reaching down to lift that part of us up or out of that space into freshness, newness, naturalness, this moment. So it's like that drowning image is sinking, right? It's heavy. You say one little painting contains so much. Even when not listening, lift up one hand. That mind doesn't listen. It's not interested in freshness. But there's a clue here. Even when we're lost in it, open up. Open up and see what else is here. What else is here other than that kind of enclosed reality? So there's this naturalness here that we're all invited to look at. It doesn't just happen like this. It takes a bit of work. It takes a bit of work to start to undermine the momentum of that monkey mind. But if we keep working at it diligently, we start to undermine the way that it will want to just repeat itself. It will just want to keep going on and on and on. And we just slowly unpick that habit. So a lot of people, with trauma is all the rage to talk about, and there's good reason for that. And often we think of it as the sense of an event that happened. Could be a sexual assault, a molesting of some sort. Could be physical assault, verbal, bullying, and this sort of thing, like an event. I actually invite you to look at it this other way. And that is that trauma is the way we adapted to that situation and it became embodied in us. Trauma would be the monkey there, lost in its thought. Trauma would be the way of like, when will it end? When will it end? Trauma is the habits we learn that have kept us out of healthy relationship, out of connection. That's real trauma, right? Because that's the trauma that keeps us out of the heart. That's the trauma that keeps us from really connecting with life, the fullness, that fullness of our being, the fullness of our beauty. It could be then showing itself as defensiveness, criticism, judgment, stonewalling, a way that I just have to get out of difficult situations without facing them. When we look at trauma that way, then we can see we're all traumatized. We have a relationship trauma. In the broader sense of it, you might say it's the habits of patriarchy, without that being confined to men, but we're all part of this in a way. A sense of having to be tough. So people have their roles. Yeah. I was talking to someone yesterday, right here in this very room, about her feeling she had to play a role from the age of about 3 or 4 with her grandfather about what women should do. That's trauma. And it's trauma for men and it's trauma for women. And that's a relational trauma. Yeah. So that one, I think if we can wake up to that, there's gold for all of us. Beauty and gold in that. These things run deep. So in that, I would say, just like to encourage you to take on this thing that you're your own teacher. You know, there's so many different meditation systems now. Ed was talking about some he's getting. I love it how he's getting a little bit from each one. I find that a really healthy approach. A little bit here, that feeds this feeds this. Tonight I'm talking about relational stuff. Don't let anyone be telling you you've just got to stay with one. For me, I would never ever encourage that. I would say that find what works for you, and it'll change, it'll evolve as time goes on. And hopefully whatever you receive will have a sense of returning you to this sense of home, coming home. Thich Nhat Hanh used to speak so beautifully of that. Coming home. You hear his talks and something you just go, yeah, that's it. That place of coming home, back to your true nature. That's what we're all about here. Yeah. So to do that then, important thing is that we don't look at others to set a role, to be role models. We might get little bits of them, like I was talking to someone else this morning about the sense of looking, starting to look out. She's at a place of her own journey of like seeing that the way she's learned to speak about things in regards to challenging power, she needs to learn new ways to do it. So encouraging her to say, just see if you can find the people that you really love. How do they do it? How do they turn towards this and do it without creating conflict? That's a skill, a beautiful skill. Yeah. So coming back to another little line in those particular instructions, it's a sense of like we get a sense maybe of the energy of the mind. For mind, it gets a bit tense. I don't know if anyone else has that sort of thing. So one of the things you can work with there is to sense the energy of the mind in reference to the body, the energy of the body. So maybe just even let yourself do that now as I'm rabbiting on. Get a sense of how the mind has a certain energy, and it can be kind of like, the way I experience it anyway, it can be like an either or. It's either the head or the body. See if there's a way that you could actually combine those two. That mind energy is experienced in reference to the body, and the body vice versa as well. The key practice of like spreading awareness. Notice that none of your intelligence disappears when you do this. None at all. And it'll take a little bit of readjusting how you might do meditation practice if you would like to take this on. It's something that I've certainly found very, very helpful. So there's no then discriminating between good thoughts, bad thoughts, right or wrong. We're just taking that flow within a whole bigger, broader attention. So me doing that, it's just happening. You get a sense of how the thoughts then, this constructing of an image starts to be a little clearer. We might get a glimpse of how I'm creating an idea of Liz, I'm creating an idea of Ed, Diane, Ingrid, Anish, Suzanne. So we create an idea. Some of you I don't know in person, but it doesn't stop the ideas from coming about who you are, right? It comes. So watch this habit. Watch this habit. And I think the lovely thing about this practice is that you could then do it any time of day, whatever you're doing. But there's no sort of have to do it in formal meditation, but you can do it while you're walking the dogs. And that's where we can let the mind then start to reach its natural state by just giving it space. A little bit more openness. We're not trying to get rid of thoughts. Just noticing that's how the mind works. Yeah. Like I said, for mine it gets a bit tense, a bit tight. But what's yours do? It's important. However it is, try not to worry about it. Notice that tendency to worry about it and reach for a perfect state. So I'm going to finish up there. I think that's probably enough for tonight. We've touched on enough. I want to pause that recording and we can do... Does anyone have any questions about that? Any observations? Objections? If there is, please. Love to hear.